It's one of the most infamous soundbites in modern comedy, a clip that launched 1,000 headlines and convinced a whole generation of fans that two pillars of sketch comedy were locked in a bitter feud. It starts with Dave Chappelle on stage, his voice a mix of frustration and resignation. He says, "You guys don't know what I've been through watching Key and Peele do my show for the last 5 effing years." He follows it up in an interview stating that when he watches their show, that hurts my feelings. For years, those comments fueled rumors of a deep-seated rivalry. The narrative was simple and seductive. The exiled king of comedy returning to find two jesters sitting on his throne. But what if we've been looking at the wrong villain all along? The story of Dave Chappelle's frustration isn't about two comedians clashing over sketches. It's about one comedian versus a television network and a creative battle over a legacy that he had to fight for and then leave behind. This isn't a story about hate, it's a story about hurt. To understand the explosion, you have to understand the landscape. In the mid-2000s, Chappelle's show wasn't just a TV program, it was a cultural atom bomb. Sketches like Clayton Bigsby, the black-white supremacist, and Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories became the language of a generation. The show was a phenomenon built entirely around Chappelle's singular, unflinching comedic voice. Then, he was gone. His abrupt exit from the show he created, walking away from a reported $50 million contract, became the stuff of legend. The reasons were complex, involving immense pressure, creative burnout, and a growing discomfort with how his racial satire was being consumed. For years, Chappelle existed as a phantom in the comedy world, occasionally resurfacing for unannounced stand-up sets, but largely absent from the mainstream he once dominated. And into that void stepped Key and Peele. Their show, which premiered on the same network, Comedy Central, in 2012, was an immediate hit. Like Chappelle's show, it was a sketch series led by two black comedians who masterfully dissected race, pop culture, and social absurdities. The comparisons were immediate and unavoidable. So when Chappelle returned to the spotlight with his Netflix specials and began making his pointed remarks, the media had a field day. The headlines framed it as a direct beef. It fit a perfect narrative. Chappelle, the pioneer, was finally calling out his successors. His jab that he had to watch them do my show seemed to confirm what many suspected. It was a simple, clean story of artistic jealousy, but the truth, as Chappelle himself would later explain, was far more complicated and aimed at a much larger, more powerful target. In multiple interviews, Chappelle made a crucial clarification. When asked directly about his comments, he was unequivocal, saying, "I'm not mad at Key and Peele at all." Instead, he said, "That was more a jab at the network." To understand that jab, you have to rewind to the creation of Chappelle's show. According to Chappelle, it wasn't an easy birth. He described fighting tooth and nail with Comedy Central executives over the very structure and tone of his program. He recounted the pushback on the now legendary Clayton Bigsby sketch. "Well, that's 10 minutes long. It should be 5 minutes long. Why should it be 5 minutes long?" He battled for these conventions, as he called them, the longer narrative sketches, the live audience, the musical guests, the stand-up segments that framed the entire show. He fought to create a specific format, a unique vehicle for his point of view, and he won. The show's historic success was proof that his formula worked. Then he walked away. And in his absence, he watched the network he fought against take the very formula they initially resisted and, in his eyes, hand it to someone else. He saw the network that wouldn't give him what he needed to continue, turn around, and launch a show that shared a similar DNA. From his perspective, the network was parceling out the template he had bled for. So when he saw Key and Peele, it wasn't the comedians he was angry with. It was the feeling of seeing his ex-partner with someone new, living in the house he built. The hurt wasn't about stolen jokes, it was about a stolen format, a format he felt was intrinsically his. Seeing created by Key and Peele at the end of their show using a structure he pioneered was what stung. It felt like an erasure of his struggle. The line between a personal beef and a business dispute gets blurry in Hollywood, and the real story often gets lost behind sensational headlines. If you appreciate getting past the clickbait to uncover the truth, take a second to hit that subscribe button. It helps us continue to tell the real stories behind the art. While Chappelle's frustration was aimed at the network, it's worth asking, are the two shows really that similar? At first glance, sure, both are sketch shows led by brilliant black comedians on the same network. But if you look past the surface, the differences in their artistic DNA are profound. Chappelle's show was an extension of Dave Chappelle himself. It was raw, confrontational, and deeply personal. The stand-up segments weren't just transitions, they were the thesis statements for the sketches that followed. The show felt like you were inside a comedy club with him, getting his unfiltered, first-person take on the world. It was a product of the DVD and word-of-mouth era, built on iconic characters and catchphrases that burrowed into the cultural lexicon. Key and Peele, on the other hand, was a different beast entirely. It was a duo-led theatrical production. Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele are master character actors, and their show was a showcase for their incredible range and chemistry. Their introductions in front of a live audience felt less like stand-up and more like two actors setting a scene. Their comedy was often more cinematic, meticulously produced, and frequently delved into genre parody, from horror to action to sci-fi. Crucially, Key and Peele was built for the YouTube era. Their sketches were often perfectly self-contained, designed with a sharp premise and a twist ending that made them incredibly shareable. While Chappelle created cultural moments, Key and Peele created viral moments. Even their approach to racial humor, a cornerstone for both, differed. Chappelle's was often a direct confrontation from his personal vantage point. Key and Peele, both biracial, often explored the nuances of code switching and existing between different cultural worlds. As Chappelle's show alum Donna Rollins has pointed out, it's unfair to say they stole anything. He noted that they were in the incredibly tough position of following a pop culture phenomenon, and that everything has a moment in time. They didn't steal a format, they evolved it for a new era. The loudest proof against the hate narrative comes once again from Chappelle himself. Far from harboring a grudge, he has openly expressed his admiration for their work, particularly Jordan Peele's. He famously called Peele's directorial debut, Get Out, a effing masterpiece, and said he loved it so much that he rented out a movie theater to host a private viewing for his friends. When asked if he would ever collaborate with them, his answer was simple and direct. If the situation was right, I'd do all kinds of ish. That is not the sentiment of a man consumed by hate. It's the statement of an artist who recognizes and respects the talent of his peers, even while grappling with the complex business dynamics that pitted them as rivals in the public eye. The story was never Chappelle versus Key and Peele. It was Chappelle versus Comedy Central. It was about an artist's fight for creative control, ownership, and the feeling of betrayal when the corporate machine he fought against seemed to move on without him, using his blueprints to build a new structure. His comments weren't an attack on the new tenants, but a lingering lament for the home he felt forced to abandon. So why does Dave Chappelle hate Key and Peele? The simple answer is he doesn't. He was hurt by a network. He was frustrated by a system that he felt disrespected his artistic contributions. The Feud was a narrative built from a few soundbites with all the vital business context removed. The real story is a timeless one in entertainment. It's about the fundamental conflict between art and commerce, between the creator and the corporation. Chappelle's words weren't born from animosity toward two other comedians, but from the painful memory of a creative war he had won and then lost. It's a powerful reminder that in the world of comedy, the biggest battles aren't always fought on stage, but in the boardrooms where the show is ultimately just business.